My name is Jim, and I'd like to welcome you to Race Magazine.
Race Magazine is a print publication that's been going for about 12 years, and this is our first foray into some video exercises, and hopefully this will be the first of many. So the video side of Race Magazine is going to be a lot different to the print publication. The print publication is aimed at people that have a very technical interest in motorsport and want to have a go at it themselves. Anything that is at a grassroots level and above.
So this is the start. Basically, I've gone down to Melbourne to pick up all of the back issues from the magazine, because it's been in print for the last 12 years. And I've now taken over the whole operation, for better or for worse, without any idea of how to drive any of Adobe's products which you need for publishing, and any idea on video editing. That's a start. And this is the start, for me at least. We'll see where we end up.
So what we're going to do here is start from the start. We're going to show you how easy it is to get into motorsport, because time and again I hear from people that motorsport's expensive, it's hard to get into, it's a bit of a closed club, and I really want to show that none of that is the case. Yes, it's expensive, but it doesn't have to be that way. You can get out there and have a lot of fun.
So why not hoon about on the streets? Why do it at all? We've got roads, haven't we? The dream is to be driving on long, twisty country roads and having a good time, but the reality is it's extremely dangerous for ourselves, for other people that wouldn't otherwise be involved in our own stupidity. There's traffic, there's police, there's fines, there's speed cameras, there's traffic, there's the revenue that the governments are addicted to, there's traffic. Did I mention the traffic? So the first thing I did is went out and bought this thing. This is a $250 car, and I only bought it because the guy said that he would drop it around to me, and I picked it up sight unseen, which is always a mistake. So what is it? It's a 1988 Toyota Corolla hatchback, and it's had a hard life. Someone's had a go at the old black bonnet treatment, and I think they painted it with a brick. It's got nicks, dents, bumps, awful tyres on it. The thing is, yeah, it's pretty disgusting. Take my life in my hands. The radio is in the boot for some reason. It's supposed to be on the dashboard, but it's not. Dashboard's mostly made out of wires and dirt. It's been to the moon, and now it's on its way back again. And it's powered by a miserable single cam 4AC 1.6 litre petrol engine, which is carbureted, uses a distributor, and it's all pretty much old school Toyota. These were a good car in the day, but today's standards, it's a pretty miserable thing to drive. It's made worse by the fact that it's had such a hard life, and I suspect mostly from the previous owner. So I took some time out of my day as a corporate fridge gazer to have a look at what we actually bought.
I'm not looking forward to this. It's currently on a permit, so it's legally okay to drive. Oh no, this thing is disgusting. Oh, the old drive shaft click to go with it. And the brakes are good on the third pump. From the dashboard, that's all of the dashboard. It looks like the funk is heavier than water, because the roofline is really clean, but everything below the window height is just feral. Handbrake. Gonna have to do something about that. Gonna need that on some of the events we're planning on doing. I think it would almost, but not quite, have enough power to pull the skin off a rice custard. Almost. And I have to say that I've driven some shitboxes in my time. This is one of them. The steering wheel is actually larger than the wheels on the car, I think. It's a bit of a shame. I remember when these were new, and they were quite a novel thing for the time. They were a sensible size, well thought out. The hatchback was a really useful thing. And it was one of the better selling cars of the era because of that. Just sensible. And for the events I'm planning on using this car for, it should be quite exciting. Probably not so much because of the event itself. There's going to be more to do with trying to pilot this thing. But for $250, that's a good place to start. And it really, hopefully, will prove the point that while motorsport can be horrendously expensive, getting into it really isn't that deep or that hard. Alright, it's time to put this spectacular piece of motoring excellence away, and we will be back to prepare it for its first event very soon.
So the first thing I need to do is clean it. If you have a good car, you don't have to do anything to go and do what we're going to do first up, which is a track day. And all you need to do is rock up and enjoy it. So in the meantime, we're going to go and talk to someone who knows what they're doing.
Right, so I'm all the way over in Rockingham in Perth, which is, I've been there a couple of times before, and I've only ever been for work, so I haven't had a good opinion of the place, but this time I've had a bit more time to spend here. It's actually really picturesque. Currently I'm off to talk to some very nice people with some pretty interesting cars, and head back up into Perth to catch up with them.
So the person I went to meet is Denver Parker, who built this spectacular orange R33 Skyline 4-door, which is fully written up in Race Magazine issue 45, which at the moment is the current issue. So what happened that you ended up on the roof?
Pissing rain. Yeah, it was just atrocious. I had to wiggle the corner before in second gear, so I grabbed third to just use the low down torque. Problem was it added 10-15 k's in a matter of a second, and that was it. It was just too many. I just couldn't pull it up. I went for the brakes, I locked the fronts, and started understeering, and then grabbed the handbrake to try and turn it in. It just wasn't going to go. So problem was I had three choices: either try and get it around the corner on instinct, go for the bush, or go for the big tree that was in the middle. And instinct kind of kicked in, and I should have just gone bush. But yeah, instinct just saw us fly off the edge of a bed, clear a creek. Off the edge of a bridge, clear a creek, and end up on the bank on the other side.
Okay.
So
you said "oh bother" or something along those lines.
Yeah. There was a couple of choice words at the time, but
I'll bet.
Yeah, I mean, we both got out, luckily. And the damage, bad was, luckily it was a fixable car. So unfortunately, this is the same. The guy who did the cage initially literally passed away a couple of months after he finished it. It was one of the last cars he did, and it's also because a couple of my mates work for Kim. It was one of the last cars they know where it is, so they've all got a bit of a personal attachment. So when he passed away, they rang me up and said, "You can't wreck that car." And I'm like, "Okay." So when I binned it, my mate rings up. The first question was, "You're right." The second one is the cage all right? So,
did it do its job?
Yeah, well, no, he goes, "Is the cage straight?" And I went, "Yeah, it's fine." He goes, "All right." So, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So that was kind of it. But yeah, that was...
You didn't have to reshell it to get it back together?
No, luckily.
Okay.
So it was bent, but it wasn't rooted. It was very... I'll show you some of the pics, but yeah, it was sad. And you see in the video, the moment I grabbed third gear, about half a second later, I go to slap it back because the brain caught up and went, "That was dumb." But it was, by then it was just too late, It was passenger time, so...
It's been an invitational entry into Targa West events and is still campaigning. So meanwhile, back at the preparations.
Alright, let's talk about some basic tools. What I got here is a cheap jack and a wheel brace. What I don't have here is a pair of jack stands, so you do need some jack stands around. And some basic hand tools. This is probably more than most people really need. In the top of this I've got some old spark plugs off something else, tech screws, cable ties, heat shrink, a multimeter, utility knife, some pliers, wire strippers, really basic stuff. And then inside, Allen keys, a few screwdrivers. You don't need a lot, just a basic flat blade, a couple of sizes of Phillips, full set of metric spanners up to about 22, and unless you've got some weird European car, you don't need your 16, 18mm spanners. You can just leave them at home. And a socket set. And I'm of the mind that you can spend good money on sockets, but you need to spend better money on ratchets. So this ratchet is easily 20 years old. I bought this when I was an apprentice, and it's still going strong. And the other style of ratchet, I've gone through about 4 or 5 of those over the years. So the brand of tool is less important. You just pick the ones that feel good, you enjoy using, and reasonable value for money. Just don't buy the really, really, really cheap stuff. It's from a supermarket. I don't know that I'd be using it. I've also got some impact sockets and a breaker bar, which I've got in the shed, and that's really as much as you need in the way of basic hand tools. It's not a lot more. A good battery drill and a rattle gun, they're good to have, but not mandatory. With these things here, you can do 90% of your maintenance tasks. Right, what am I doing now? Time to give it an oil change. I've got my special gloves on so I can keep my hands beautiful for my other job as a hand and bum crack model. First things first, take the cap off. Leave it somewhere obvious, and that doesn't go back on until everything else is finished and the car's ready to start. That way you don't forget to put the oil in it or something like that. Find where the oil filter is, which is in the front there. The oil filter off. This is, as if that's going to happen easily. This is why you put a filter on with one hand, no tighter than you can get with one hand, a little bit of oil around the seal. Otherwise you never get the bloody thing back off again. Once I put this on. So there's two ways of doing this now. Special filter wrench, bash a screwdriver straight through the middle and use that to lever it off, and I think I'm going to do that because I don't like this car very much. The other thing to do is when you take the filter off, make sure the O-ring is still on there. Otherwise it can get stuck on the block. When you put the new filter on, you end up with two O-rings on there, and it just sprays oil everywhere. But sometimes, not straight away, it'll do it on your test drive. Goodbye motor. Okay. A little bit of oil around the seal. If it's a big filter or in a high position, fill it with oil first. This one, two reasons why I'm not going to. First is that it's on its side instead of upside down, so it'll just come back in again. The other is, I don't care. Alright, as tight as you get it with one hand. Right, I'll set that somewhere precariously dangerous. Right over the open oil filler, what could go wrong? Now this is a problem. It's a bit hard to see here, but the brake pads are almost on metal. And considering they're the size of biscuit lids, I'm going to need all the brakes I can get, so I need to do something about that. This is a very special oil, as in it was on special. It's the cheapest stuff in the store. Oil filter's on, oil is in, and put the lid back on. Run it and then check it again because the filter will take a little bit of the oil out of this end. Don't be tempted to overfill it for track days, because if you put too much in, it'll get thrown up into the crank and not past the ring. And at worst you can blow your motor, and at best you just fill the street with smoke. Okay. Done! Ready to go racing. Well, it's a bit off the street today anyway. Oh yeah, except for the brakes. So I took it to Wakefield Park, and here's some of the rest of the group that I was put in with. And the first thing you'll see here is there's two problems. The first is the car, and the second is the driver. But more on that next issue. Thanks very much for watching. I hope so far it's been enjoyable.